Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around, we watched The Day of the Daleks. What was that one about?
Well, it was actually a Dalek serial without a whole lot of Daleks in it.
Yeah, they were just kind of incidental to what was happening.
And quite honestly, beyond that, I've completely forgotten because I'm looking up here trying to remember how long ago it was we watched Curse of Peladon, and all I'm remembering is some kind of fight between the Doctor and some kind of fuzzy monster, which was really kind of absurdly slow.
Something like that, yeah. I think. Well, with Day of the Daleks, it was all about these people going back in time, trying to kill this guy that was leading the peace conferences, because they thought that he was going to blow up the mansion and start World War III. Little did they know, because they were so desperate to kill him, they blew up the mansion and started World War III. Thus, the Daleks came in and took over. So the Doctor was able to convince them that they were caught in their own time loop and break the time loop completely.
And I got to thinking, isn't that very similar to the Terminator thing, where they send a guy back in time to save Sarah Connor from the Terminator, and then he ends up with Sarah Connor creating the child who grows up to be the man who sends the guy back in time to save Sarah Connor.
Yes, that is the exact plot of the first Terminator movie. So I'm just going to assume that James Cameron was a Doctor Who fan.
We must assume that, yes.
Which, I mean, it's entirely possible.
Yeah.
So just replace the Daleks with Arnold, and it all works out. So, yeah. But today we are rewatching The Curse of Peladon, which is honestly a reaction I don't go back to that often. Like the others, I'll every so often I would rewatch them a bit, but this one not so much. So,
wasn't this one also? I always hate to bring this up, where one of the costumes was galactically...
Oh, that's right.
The galactic gherkin or something like the giant pickle.
Yes, the representative from Alpha Centauri, I believe. Which they actually, later with the 12th Doctor, they actually bring that back where they go to Mars and it eventually leads to the Ice Warriors joining the galactic scene, I guess, and they are contacted and the screen pops up and it's almost the exact same outfit. So that it was hilarious, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we watched this originally when we were doing not just the tour of Classic Who, but the preparation for the 50th. So I believe what we kept saying was that each story somehow built up to the 50th to some degree. I don't remember if there was anything in this one, though, that did that. No. So I'm not exactly sure if this establishes something big or major. But yeah, so...
and is it just a 4-parter?
Just 4 parts.
Okay.
So...
Well, we'll figure that out today.
Yeah. I also don't think this has anything of Unit, the Brigadier, Mike, Benton, none of them. Yeah. So...
Because they're not on Earth, they actually go to Peladon, if that's correct.
Yeah, I think it's another one of those sent by the Time Lords kind of things. So, but yeah. But because we are rewatching this episode today, we're also going to be doing a bonus video today that will be going out about an hour after this video goes out. So we're putting in more work for you. But we'll be watching... Actually, I've got a Blu-ray here. We're going to be watching an episode from the 13th Doctor in Series 11.
This will be my first time watching the 13th Doctor.
Yeah, so we'll be watching Series 11, Episode 6, which is Demons of the Punjab. So, again, in an hour or so after this goes up, or if you're likely past that in the future, it's already up. You can go find it. We also have a specific playlist for every modern reaction you've done. So, which at this point, it's not a long playlist, but it's nice so you don't have to go searching through the classic playlist. I've also been thinking about doing another playlist for every audio drama that we did, which at this point, that's 4 videos, three with you, 1 where it was just me. But
why was there one that I didn't do?
Because you hated it.
Oh.
So we did 3 in a row, and then a couple months later we were supposed to do another one, but I I let you off the hook on that one. So I did it alone, and it's just 20 minutes. I mean, as per every video, it's about 20 minutes of me talking to no one. I think that was also back when my arm was still all banged up, so I have it resting on a pillow and I'm trying to talk and stuff. So, but yeah. Now, if I do actually make that playlist, that means we'll have 4 Doctor Who playlists on this channel, plus the Sarah Jane Adventures and Torchwood playlists that I also have on the channel. So there's a lot of Doctor Who on this channel.
He's an industry by himself.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do that. I've also been thinking about doing more audio drama reviews, though I imagine I would still be doing that on my own. So
I'm not as much of a fan of the audio dramas.
Yeah, so
now I might read the books, but it loses something in translation to me personally.
It would be hilarious if we tried to do a thing where I watch the audio dramas and I try to explain them to you on camera, and then you read the books and try to explain them to me on camera without us watching or reading the other person's stuff. So that would be an interesting idea. We'll have to think about that. Anywho, more on topic. We should get to the Curse of Peladon. Here we go.
He will present his credentials to you shortly.
Thank you, Torbis.
We wait now only for the chairman delegate from Earth. Then the discussions can begin.
And I believe
nothing I can say will deter you.
the king here is actually Patrick Troughton's son. Oh, poor thing. And she just started flying again.
Delegate from Alpha Centauri, member of the Galactic Federation.
There it
presents
is.
his credentials before His Majesty King Peladon.
Meanwhile, there is no danger to you or to your fellow delegates.
I accept your Majesty's assurances.
Thank you.
I hope every episode this season is a conference of some variety.
A giant pickle wearing a shower curtain.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, the drawings on the background, this might have been like leftovers from the old Aztec set.
Maybe.
Or something very similar. And of course, even with all this wind, when they go inside, her hair will be perfect, as will his.
Yeah. Well, they probably both use a lot of product.
Greetings! You are the delegate from Alpha Centauri?
Oh, I forgot about this guy.
Joe, come and look at this.
It's Alf.
What on earth is it?
And together we made a boy into a king.
And now, Torbis.
This guy sounds like he'd be Ghost of Christmas Present.
The Federation delegates are here at my invitation. Should it be me that was struck down?
No, it was Torbis' blind advice that would have destroyed your kingdom. You would have become a slave, not a king.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
No.
Meanie?
No. It's been a while since we've seen the Ice Warriors. This time they're actually green.
Princess Josephine. Of TARDIS.
They're really playing into it so quickly.
I'm sorry to hear that your journey ended so uncomfortably.
The whole affair was most deplorable. The pilot was exceedingly inefficient.
Well, I'm glad it was nothing more. You bring a welcome beauty to a serious occasion.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
You know, honestly, this probably would have been a great time to have the Brigadier. He's used to meetings and stuff like this.
Now, let's see who Peladon is, see if that is Troughton.
Alright. Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah. He actually comes back in a not Peladon himself, but the actor comes back in a 10th Doctor episode too. So yeah, pretty cool to see. Well, that's part 1. Honestly, it's one of those things where it's like I'm watching and I'm remembering exactly everything that's happening, but at the same time, it is very riveting. So I am into it, even if it is a bit of a slower episode.
Yeah. Not a lot of action, but of course it's exposition.
Yeah.
Whew. Foggy brain.
Yeah. So, well, that's not a good sign if we're just starting out and you're already starting to lose it. So,
well, I've just had my first Coke today, so I haven't had any caffeine earlier yet.
All right. I do like just how quickly the two of them get into the roles. So, especially Joe, I feel like Joe hasn't had a situation like that yet. So,
and she's dressed up for a night out in town with Mike Yates.
Yeah.
And just happens to be looking like a princess.
Yeah.
When she meets the king.
It all works out. So, and it is interesting. Now we know who Mike Yates is. We didn't know that the last time. So that's pretty interesting. Though I still wish there would be an episode where they go to space, but they bring the Brigadier, because while yes, maybe he could fit into some of this whole delegate talk because he's kind of used to stuff like that. Just seeing him in space would just be hilarious because it's just so not him, you know? So.
His coming shall be full of terror and darkness. His cry shall be heard in the night, and death shall walk in the land of Peladon.
Well, there was no cry of warning, and nobody actually saw him, did they?
To the unbeliever, all signs are as dust in the wind.
The point is, once King Peladon believed...
Dust? Wind? Dude. I keep forgetting that King Peladon has shorts on and leggings.
Very Shakespearean.
Well.
We will adjourn now and consider our position. We will let you know our decision as soon as possible.
It's interesting since they called Earth this sort of remote backwater planet that he's the chairman.
Hepesh, you may leave us.
This is very Hamlet, Ophelia, and what's Ophelia's father's name?
Only an observer. It's up to the committee to decide whether...
Completely forgotten. Polonius.
I would have said Bill, so.
Just like a father.
My mother was an Earth woman. So you see, there is a bond between...
Maybe that's why. There's a bond between Peladon and Earth, because his father married an Earth woman.
Nah.
All you want is a political ally.
No, I want you as a friend.
No. I'm strictly neutral. Count me out.
Good job, Peladon. Why don't you go bike in place for a little while?
He's got his father's mouth, but the nose is very sharp.
Now an evil influence comes between King Peladon and his true destiny. It must be destroyed. Agador will give his blessing.
Is that Benton?
I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so either, but he kind of looks like him.
And Peladon is very like Earth.
But they say they're here for
No, we haven't seen any technology on Peladon yet.
Yeah. Except the electronic key.
I guess. Oh, it's an actual gun. Not like the hand thing they used to have.
I'm sorry if I might have misjudged you. But the doctor did say you were a race of warriors.
We were once. But now we reject violence.
Oh, that's good.
Except in self-defense.
You've got a pretty
What
big
sort
gun
of
for
stuff?
not having that.
Yeah.
This is a book.
To survive.
The African proverb, speak softly, but carry a big stick.
Nah.
To this charge, the laws of Peladon allow of no defense, and only one punishment. death.
Okay. Now, if I remember correctly, that will be the fight,
Yeah.
I think.
I think they have to fight the champion or Agador. I
Yeah.
can't remember which one, but
I think it's the Doctor faces Grun in a fight, so bust out that Venusian Aikido. Which, the more I think about it, that's 3 planets in the solar system that support life, then. Although we've never seen the Venusians. I don't know if we ever see the Venusians, so... well, I really like how, well, first off, just everyone pointing fingers at each other. And obviously, it does make sense for the Doctor to sort of prejudge the Ice Warriors, since he's only ever met them 2 times, but
yeah.
they were doing pretty bad stuff both times. So...
And the thing is, he doesn't know how far into the future he's gone. All he
Yeah.
knows is that he's on another planet.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting because normally when we meet a species again far in the future, they generally do recognize the Doctor, but this time they don't. So that's at least good. Now, granted, yes, he obviously has changed face since last time, but still, I mean, I guess with, a race like the Daleks, it's not that they know the Doctor, it's that they've been severely beaten by the Doctor about 10 times by now. So maybe the Ice Warriors just don't want to remember. So,
but they also don't know that he's the Doctor. He's supposed to, they see him as the Earth Delegate Chairman or Chairman Delegate or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not this far in the future. There wouldn't be any kind of collective memory of him, I wouldn't think.
Probably. So,
because the second time that he met them, did they recognize him?
I don't think so, but at the same time, that might have been one of those, like, the Doctor's kind of seeing them out of order. So, like, the second time was earlier than the first time he met them, so I don't know. But this definitely seems like the furthest along for the Ice Warriors, so...
I am innocent.
Your Majesty,
You've got to believe him.
his ignorance of the law at least deserves consideration.
No, his crime is too great.
A royal pardon would count highly with the Federation.
The Federation cannot override our holy laws. It is forbidden by its charter.
That is correct.
Trial by combat.
The Earth's delegate is not of noble blood.
It's barbaric.
It is all I can offer. We will engage in combat to the death with the King's champion, Grun.
That possibility is obviously intended to confuse us.
I do not understand.
Obviously not a human head there, but somebody on his knees inside that little bucket doing the puppet thing in there.
Well,
There lies your route to freedom.
one hand does the head, the other one squeezes the liquid.
Slave us with their machines, corrupt us with their technology. The face of Peladon will be changed, the past swept away, and everything that I know and value will have gone.
I don't know why it took me this long to realize this is totally a Star Trek episode. The other interesting thing about that is this feels like a Next Gen episode, but long before Next Gen.
Even more delicate if the Doctor is killed.
Yes, that would amount to a declaration of war.
An interesting problem.
And the Federation...
Seeing how tall it is now, maybe he's sitting on a seat in there.
Yeah.
We must do nothing.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot.
I hope it's not too hot in there. Also, next time, maybe we should do this conference over Zoom.
Federation law allows only unanimous decisions. And I voted to stay.
You?
I like this guy.
What would you do that?
Oh look, it's Arcturus, trying to sneak away, but he can't, because he's in a tube.
You always worry that an open flame like that close to a set wall might catch it on fire. You've heard the story about how we set one of our sets on fire when we were out in the park.
Well, I must say you seem quite partial to all of the Venusian lullabies. Don't you, Agador, old chap?
The Pit of Despair.
the pit that they say is under the Citadel. Funny enough, where those tunnels are.
Yes.
Composer, turn the music on. This guy fights a little too well to be Benton. Well,
he's got a pointed stick.
at least I can still whack you around with this thing. Ooh. Throw some dirt in his eyes or something. Pocket sand. They're doing a good job at hiding the stunt actor. And thankfully, Pertwee had enough hair for them to hide it.
I would not kill the King's champion.
Alrighty.
Forgotten that part.
Yeah, that...
Arcturus tries to blast somebody.
Yeah. You know, this whole time I was thinking, like, oh yeah, I think when we originally did this, I think you called him SpongeBob. And only now do I realize, no wait, that was a different character in the 6th Doctor episode we watched, where he sounded more like SpongeBob.
Speaking of which, one of the Doctors, who's number 6 and who's number 7?
Number 6 is Colin Baker, and 7 is Sylvester McCoy.
It may be Sylvester McCoy. I think I saw something just this morning. He's going to be in the reboot of The Munsters, playing Cousin Igor, I think. I know it was one of the Doctors, and I know it wasn't like Tom Baker or Davison. So it was either Colin Baker or McCoy. I think it's McCoy.
Alright. Well, that is part 3.
Now, that fight is not as bad as I remembered it.
No, I think... You know what you might be thinking of? The fight from the 3 Doctors. Remember there was like...
Yeah.
It was when both of them, 2 and 3, were there. And it's like, oh, well, you must fight the evil part of Omega or something. And then it just cut. And Troughton wasn't in that fight, obviously. It was just John Pertwee. And it was slow and weird. And like they kept tossing each other. And it's just... It is very strange. That one, honestly, it's not that bad. The composer could have woken up a little bit during that. But honestly, it was pretty good, all things considered. And they did a good job, again, hiding the stunt actor for Pertwee. Unless he did that himself.
Well, wasn't he... Didn't you say something about he's trained in jiu-jitsu or something?
It would make sense, considering how much they write that for this Doctor. So, but I mean, a lot of it, especially in the overhead shots where he was getting tossed around, you can't see his face whatsoever. So I think it'd be easy to hide a stunt actor there. So,
And Arcturus?
His planet lacks mineral deposits. Peladon has them in abundance.
That's why he wanted to make sure that Peladon did not enter the Galactic Federation. You see, he'd already made a private secret alliance with Hepesh.
Extremely unethical. Fortunately, the scheme has been foiled, so all is
So-
well.
Oh, but is it?
when Hepesh doesn't want the Galactic Federation to start mining, getting all the minerals and resources from Peladon, and then he makes the alliance with Arcturus anyway,
See, Hepesh believed
was a little
everything
odd.
Arcturus told him.
Mars and the world of Arcturus are old enemies. That would mean war.
Exactly. And all the rest of the Galactic Federation would take sides.
The Federation will be wrecked. There will be interplanetary conflict.
And Peladon would
So
become
what
the first
happened to
battle-
Arcturus? I thought he was trying to kill the Doctor. Did he?
and sterile.
I think Sorg shot him.
Oh. I didn't see that.
Yeah. I think because it shows Arcturus's dish TV satellite, and then it quick cuts to their gun, and that's what blasts.
Replace Hepesh with someone you can trust, Your Majesty. Now.
Well, it's going to be hard. There's no other speaking characters on Peladon.
Shame will destroy him.
Alright, now Grun's going to go tell him everything. Somehow. Or he's going to get a rock.
Joe, I want you to go ahead and take charge of the conference. Work on Centauri. Once you've got a unanimous decision, act.
But
Well,
what
good
are
luck,
you going
Joe.
to do?
I'm going to see a man about an open door. Off you go.
All right, if you say so.
Yeah, this is a really good episode for Joe.
Yeah.
I take it there is no doubt that the Earth government will ratify your decision in view of the special circumstances.
Circumstances? Well, I'm not quite sure. What circumstances?
Your forthcoming marriage with King Peladon.
It'd be hilarious if somehow she called Unit. Somehow, like, through the TARDIS calls back in time. I swear, these are all to the tune of Christmas songs.
God rest you, merry gentlemen.
Yeah. There was another one earlier.
Come on, old chap. That's it. Come on, Uncle. Yes. Come on, Grant.
Can't take him by the hand.
I am your high priest. I speak for Agador. And I accuse you, Head Bishop, being not only a
I
traitor,
speak for the trees.
but also to your sacred trust. Perhaps I was wrong, Peladon. I hope so.
If I have only one regret in life, it's that I'm dying now.
Some of Peladon's stout lads heaved her up the mountainside for us.
Is she all right?
Yes, never better. I told her the TARDIS was indestructible.
Well, I hope it gets us back to Earth this
She
time.
might be a little cranky, but...
You know, I haven't seen a coronation since Elizabeth I's. Or was it Queen Victoria's?
Name dropper.
Tell you, my good fellow, I am the official Earth delegate.
Doctor is the accredited Earth delegate.
Doctor? What doctor? Doctor who?
Well,
Where are they?
What is that?
Alrighty.
That's a fun ending.
Yeah. Alright, that's the Curse of Peladon. Again.
Again. An interesting story.
Yeah.
It does bog down in certain... Why is the TARDIS on its... Oh, it fell off the cliff.
Yeah. Did you just notice
I
that?
just noticed that.
Yeah, so...
Anyway, it does drag in certain places, but, that's to be expected. And again, if we were watching this over the period of a month, I doubt we would have noticed it.
Yeah, definitely. So, a bit of a slower episode, but that's alright. Still, you're right. Definitely very, very interesting. And honestly, yeah, it does feel like an episode of Next Gen. Like, I can see this as Picard and Crusher or someone, going in and dealing with this sort of thing. So, yeah, and I wonder, it would also be interesting just seeing the different other species that could be the other delegates. I would imagine something like the Romulans being like the Ice Warriors, so you don't trust them immediately. But yeah. So let's see.
Now, this is before we see the who's the guy? Is it Davros? There's some other person in a future episode that's kind of in a motorized chair and it's just basically a head.
Yeah, Davros, the creator of the Daleks. So, he doesn't come in until Genesis of the Daleks. So, but it is that same sort of thing. So, but I think on him it is prosthetics that they put on an actor and then put him in the chair, which is different from Arcturus in this one. But let's see. So we had the test flight, and full story without anything from Unit really, which was interesting. because even in the past we would have a little bit of it, at least just a cameo by the Brigadier when they leave, but none of that here. The only mention is going out on the town with Mike Yates, so that's about it. And it is also interesting that he thought he got the TARDIS working, but it was the Time Lords that sent him here. Which is interesting that they would specifically send him here, because, the last time they sent him somewhere, it was the Master trying to get this doomsday weapon and stuff, whereas this time it's, just this whole delegation thing with Peladon. So, I would be curious what the Time Lords' relationship is with the Galactic Federation, too, Because, that's sort of the thing, the sort of sense I get, that the Time Lords are almost this... They're just sort of above everything in the universe. So, there's all this other stuff that goes on, but how do those things work with the Time Lords is always something I've wondered. So,
they say that they don't interfere, but by sending the Doctor, they are in fact interfering.
Yeah. Which is actually, it's an interesting thing that it's like, I would imagine it's like, well, we're not interfering. We're just letting the Doctor do what he does, that I'm sure it's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But later on, real late, only most recently in the 13th Doctor's era, they've introduced this sort of subset to the Time Lords called the Division, and their whole thing is interfering. But it's also sort of a thing where it's like, well, they interfere, they go in. It's basically... they go in and violate the Prime Directive and everything, and, they work and do a lot of stuff on different planets when they probably shouldn't. And I kind of sit here and think, well, it's like, okay, well, that's kind of what the Doctor does, but the Doctor always sort of stumbles in. They're not actively looking for this to interfere and stuff. But it kind of makes me sit and think, like, well, how do the Time Lords allow that? So, we still don't have an answer as of yet. We only just recently learned, actually, what this whole organization is. And tomorrow, actually, is the finale of the most recent season. So maybe there will be some answers in there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But it makes you wonder, why wouldn't they have gone back and tried to stop the Black Plague or, stop the Second World War or even the First World War, for that matter.
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting premise that perhaps they simply haven't gotten around to Earth because Earth seems so insignificant.
Yeah. It could also be that, they must think like, well, we have to, keep the timeline intact. And maybe it's that, this is such a critical point in Peladon because there's also this whole thing with Hepesh allying himself with Arcturus. And they said, well, the planet that Arcturus is from are old enemies with the Ice Warriors of Mars. So that would lead to a war. They said planets would take sides and it would completely destroy the entire Federation. So maybe it's... honestly, maybe to the Time Lords, the first two world wars on Earth are insignificant. It's like, well, that's just the humans fighting amongst themselves. It doesn't matter. Whereas this would be a more galactic event.
That makes sense.
So, yeah. And then because it's such a huge galactic event that would happen, that's the moment that they interfere, or, in this case, send the Doctor to interfere. Does kind of make you wonder, what do the Time Lords do all day? Like, they have their TARDISes, and they say later, I don't know if they ever say it in classic Doctor Who, but in modern Doctor Who, they say that a TARDIS is supposed to be piloted by 6 Time Lords. And that's the thing, is that 6 people pilot it, so it's, all perfect and all properly flown and everything. And if you have all 6 pilots and multiple TARDISes, they say then you can even go to a different universe, specifically. But, and especially in modern Doctor Who, it's just him, and he's not that great at piloting the TARDIS anyway. So if he ever goes to another universe or something, he stumbles on it, and that's probably why the TARDIS has to pick up the slack on taking them to different locations. But yeah, I kind of wonder, what do they do with all this time if they don't interfere or do anything like that.
Well, I suppose they have a lot of time on their hands.
I suppose they do.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a long week.
It has been a long week, so... Which is always great when we have to do 2 episodes back to back.
Yeah,
so
we'll get lunch in between, so...
Yeah. Let's see.
What else you got?
Well, the whole thing with this conference, which was interesting, and honestly, I do like that this is something we've had twice in a row, where, we've had the peace conference, to try to prevent World War III last episode, and now we have this conference to, bring Peladon into the Galactic Federation. I really am hoping that just the rest of the season just is conferences that keep getting interfered with, Because, I don't really know anything about the rest of this season, and, we don't have, the Master as our sort of continuing, overarching villain, but we don't really know anything until the top of Season 10, because that will be the 3 Doctors. So yeah, I'm not really sure what else we're going to be doing in this season. But we have the delegates, we have our Ice Warriors, which were very interesting. It was a good idea to make them the good guys and on the Doctor's side and everything. So I did like that. And then we had the delegate from Alpha Centauri.
The gherkin in the shower curtain.
Yeah. We should 6
arms.
Yeah. And I do love, because you can clearly see that they're strung together. Yeah. So it's an interesting costume, to say. They put some effort into it, because it also blinks too, which I noticed, and the head movements on it when it turns around, they're honestly pretty good. Yeah. So it's just a ridiculous design. So
the galactic gherkin.
Yeah, they tried to make it work as best they could. And then our other delegate being Arcturus, which feels like they took maybe an old Dalek shell, just, redesigned it a bit, put some different stuff, and then they're like, okay, so, what do we do on top? All right, well, let's get one of those shrunken Beetlejuice heads.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, put it in there with a
Beetlejuice
stick.
came much later, but yeah.
Yeah, with a stick, and it's like, okay, so it's just going to be this weird thing, and it's like, okay, well, we'll put in a little squeezer for the guy, so squeeze and some liquid comes from in there, so...
like that Jeff Dunham, Jose Jalapeno on a steak.
Yeah, it's just a very intricate, in some way, design. It's one of those, I love when it's like, there's clearly effort put into these costumes, but to what end, Yeah.
They're just limited by the technology of the time period.
Yeah.
But yes, it was an interesting idea. Now, again, somebody obviously in there operating it, but think about how much better that would have been if it had actually been a person's head that we could have watched, actually mouth moving, eyes blinking, and head turning, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it would have been.
Which, again, they may have tried and realized that it was very difficult because the head would have to stick out of, a portion of the box. But
yeah, so, but it is also hilarious that. Do I have? All right, here's a good question. Do I have season 10 of Doctor Who? I don't remember. I'm gonna try and see. Where is? Nope, that's not it. There it is. I'm actually going to pull up the clip, just a small clip of the Alpha Centauri delegate popping up in modern Doctor Who, because it looks exactly the same. So, let me see here real quick. And if I remember, I'll actually have the footage up in this too.
Are you receiving us? Mars, are you receiving?
This is Iraxa, Queen Empress of Mars.
Ah, excellent. We have received details of your situation. We would be happy to send a fleet to your aid at once. A physical marker of some sort would be appreciated to guide our ships.
To whom am I speaking?
This is Alpha Centauri.
Well, okay, it does look a little better.
To the universe.
All right. I think that's it for the cameo there. But it was very fascinating to watch that, because I'm pretty sure we watched this before I saw that, and I was like, wait a second, that's the delegate from Alpha Centauri. I can't believe they brought that back after 40 years. So
I have to say, the new Ice Warriors costumes are really cool.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and that was our also a brand new Ice Warrior too, being the Empress there. So, I mean, that is the interesting thing, watching these episodes from the early 70s, and then like today we're going to be watching an episode from 2018. So just the difference in camera work and everything is just fascinating to watch. So let's see, we had the Doctor and Joe posing as the Earth delegates, which was good. Again, them just jumping right into it, and honestly, yeah, it was a very good episode for Joe. Like, she really stepped up, I thought.
Yeah.
So the only thing that really kind of tripped her up was just the communication, but she managed to get through that, or the communicator, I mean. So let's see, we also had the prejudgment, I guess, on the Ice Warriors, which makes sense that both times that he's met the Ice Warriors, things didn't really go so well.
Yeah.
So he would sort of suspect that the Ice Warriors would be the ones to try to jeopardize the conference.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we had a lot of pointing fingers in this one. So some people pointing it at just the Federation in general. They're pointing it at the Doctor. He's pointing it at the Ice Warriors. It just keeps going back and forth. They find Joe in the Ice Warriors bedroom there. I wonder how they sleep, now that I think about that, because I don't know, I feel like if they try to lay down, they're going to be uncomfortable, but that's just because I'm looking at it as a suit, so
maybe they sleep standing up.
maybe
Like the Borg, don't the Borg regenerate standing up?
Yeah, they do. So let's see, but we had the Ice Warriors rejecting violence unless absolutely necessary, but that makes sense, at least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of civilizations have tried to do that before. Just after World War II, Japan completely, if I recall correctly, disassembled their army, but kept a defense force just in case somebody tried to invade Japan.
Yeah. So
in fact, I think their constitution actually forbid them to have an offensive army and only had the defensive capability.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Of course, the ones that specifically reject violence do have the best gun of the delegates. So, and also just the fact that what was the main Ice Warrior's name? Islier. That was it, Islier. Islier. It's also interesting that he was the only one to have a sub-delegate with him. So
now, that picture says Sonny Caldenez as Sorg, and yet appears to show a picture of a woman in a bikini. Please don't tell me that Sorg was actually a female.
I don't think so. I think that's one of those weird... like, picture crops. I imagine the guy who played Sorg is just to the left of that picture, but he got cut out.
Yeah.
That does remind me, Carlos Valdez, who plays Cisco on The Flash, for the longest time, I remember I was looking him up in the early days of The Flash to see if I recognized him from anything, and his picture on IMDb was of David Ramsey, who plays Diggle, and I thought, oh, wait a minute, that can't be him. And you click on the picture and you get the full thing, and Cisco's right next to him. So I imagine it's something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's interesting. The delegate who has rejected violence, but he's the only one to have a backup. A guard basically, who also has this giant weapon on hand. So, but at least they were ready. Yeah.
And again, I quoted that African proverb. Most people know that because it was a favorite saying of the American president, Theodore Roosevelt. But he always credited, he said, there is an old African proverb, and most people don't finish it out. It's speak softly and carry a big stick, and you will go far.
Yeah, so let's see. Well, and the whole thing with this episode is tradition versus the future, I guess, which is interesting.
But the tradition based on I don't want to disrespect their religion, but it's based on a mythology, basically, that there's this great mythical, religious, iconic beast who everybody pays attention to, and yet nobody has ever seen, except for apparently Hepesh, who knows he's down there. So it's just that is kind of interesting, because it's a very subtle way of saying, look, we have progressed beyond some of this, and we need to not base our future decisions on things that are thousands of years old. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, now part of it, because the whole thing, like, oh, well, he's seen Agador, but he's seen the beast that he passes as Agador. I'm not sure, honestly, how much he truly believes, because, I mean, he's, conjuring all these things, sending the beast out to kill Torbis at the beginning, and then having Grun, tip the statue to try to kill them. So he's influencing all of this. I don't know how much superstition he really believes in, or if he's just using that, because his main thing, I think, is because he just doesn't want Peladon to join the Federation. He thinks that eventually, the planet and the king will become slaves to the Galactic Federation. And actually, now that I think about it, this is very Dragon Ball. I think this is the backstory of Dragon Ball.
Well, it also reminds me, there's a great speech in the play and film called Inherit the Wind, which is the story of the Scopes monkey trial. And the Clarence Darrow character, Henry Drummond, makes the point that you have to understand that, yes, we will learn how to fly, but when we learn how to fly, when human beings, after tens of thousands of years, finally learn how to fly, birds will lose their mystery, and the air will smell of gasoline. So, there's just, sometimes you have to accept there is a price for progress.
Yeah.
Madam, we will give you the vote, but you lose the right to hide behind your petticoats anymore. And then, of course, which is the whole point of that, he says, in order for us to advance in science, we have to put behind, I think he calls it the pleasant poetry of Genesis. And that's when Brady interrupts and says, no, we cannot give that up. And he says, look, I'm not telling you can't believe in God. It's not that you can't have faith. It's that you have to understand science can give you actual results. And, you have to believe in both. You have to have both science and faith, is what he's trying to say at the end.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's true. I mean, with the whole thing with Hepesh, yes, it is the whole thing of like, well, he doesn't want them to become slaves and everything. And it's like, well, I mean, well, first off, you don't know if that's going to happen, and especially when these delegates, for the most part, except Arcturus, they come in peace. They're trying to help. And granted, yes, Alpha Centauri is over here talking about, savages and barbarism and everything, but still, it's like, you can keep your traditions, but you can also join this federation. You can be equal among the other planets. And so it's like, you understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, it's like, well, we can't just stay here forever, So...
And, it's essentially one of the things that, again, you can say going forward, if Hepesh were to win, is that essentially the planet would become slaves under him and the Arcturians.
Yeah.
Because they would control all of the people using the ancient religion and, obviously the, king's special guards if necessary. So, as much as they're talking about we must keep the old ways, they're literally basically offering the same thing that they are trying to prevent.
Yeah, that is the strange thing of the alliance with Arcturus. And it's like, well, Arcturus is going to kill the Doctor and help them, and in exchange, they get special minerals from Peladon. But wasn't that the whole point?
Yeah.
that he doesn't want the Federation to come in and try to take, the good stuff on Peladon, basically.
Well, it may be the difference of the Galactic Federation would be in league with King Peladon, whereas the Arcturians would be in league with Hepish. It's a matter of, I will be in charge rather than this, weak, snotty-nosed little kid.
Yeah, it could be that. I did really like King Peladon, and just because, yes, he's a young man who, while he has learned a lot from, his two advisors, he is really struggling with this whole situation. And honestly, I kind of feel bad for him when he does try to, reach out to Jo and try to have her help. And though rightfully so, she does reject him multiple times in this, saying, you just want, this political ally and everything. And you understand why she says that, but you honestly do feel bad for him because he is really struggling, pretty much without Torbus.
Well, I think that, even though I was kind of joking about it, that initial comparison to Hamlet and Ophelia and Polonius, because Hamlet struggles throughout the entire play. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to, avenge my father's death and yet, carry on and not disrupt my mother's life because she's fallen in love with my uncle, and so it just goes on and on and on. So I think the costumer may have kind of tied into that because these were very Shakespearean-looking costumes, or at least modern versions of Shakespearean costumes. Yeah, not Elizabethan, but Shakespearean. So,
right. Well, and also just the entire design of the planet was very, very interesting because it's like, when they're talking about, okay, you're going to join the Galactic Federation, it's like, okay, well, there's a certain level of technology that we would expect then from this, spacefaring, now obviously civilization. But there really wasn't anything that you can see. It was just this, normal sort of, obviously ancient-looking castle. But their garb was also, very old-fashioned, and just no other technology. All the technology came from the delegates, really, other than the slight technology of opening the doors, and that's it. So it's a very interesting choice that they don't show any sort of technology, and maybe that's to reinforce, when Alpha Centauri is talking about, they're savages, they're very barbaric and stuff.
But all their weapons are swords and halberds and things like that.
So, right. So it almost feels like, a sort of medieval Earth, basically, which they do highlight the similarities between Peladon and the Earth. So, but it's more if the Middle Ages never ended, and we kept up with that sort of style and everything, but still the technology advanced. Which almost sounds like a young adult novel. It's like this sort of medieval style, but there's phasers and stuff. That'd be interesting. That'd be an interesting idea. I actually had an idea for a show, and it's a stupid show, I will grant, but it basically about a vampire who goes around hunting monsters in space. So, and I had this in my head, and I was like, all right, what if we had all this, dark, gothic vampire imagery, but it was in space? And I thought, that sounds so stupid, I want to make that. So, anyway.
Alrighty then. Well, I was just thinking today, and it was, I don't know, I think it may have been vaguely connected to this, because I was trying to remember, because we saw it, a year and a half, 2 years ago, of, what if the Doctor was able to go back to 1348, right at the beginning of the Black Plague.
Yeah.
And essentially try to convince people this thing is beyond anything that you've ever seen before. And there are certain precautions that we need to take. But the people would simply say, we cannot do that because, not because of superstition necessarily, but, you're saying that this is brought on by the rats, or the fleas on the rats or whatever, but no, we happen to think that you've got to do all this, and it's just it would be an interesting parallel to what we've been going through for the last 2 years. Here is this modern plague that has come upon the Earth, and yet people still reject the idea that it's even real. It's like that makes no sense, and I think sending the Doctor back into the time of the Black Plague would show a real parallel of why some people would simply just outright reject and say, no, this is the work of God, and other people would say it's not really happening. It's just the way that the aristocracy is trying to kill off the peasantry, and I don't know. It just that struck me as an interesting possible concept for an episode arc.
Yeah.
In modern Doctor Who.
Yeah. So, and that honestly reminds me, and this is so stupid, but I saw a meme actually that was like, man, being an old-timey doctor must have been amazing. You just walk in drunk and be like, oh, seems like I gotta just sort of let some blood out of you for a little while. Cool, that'll be $5. Drink this mercury if the demons get in your lungs again. So,
there's so much we did not know.
Oh, yeah. I actually there was another video I was watching. It was, I don't even know how to describe this, but people that would get plague doctor outfits and stuff. I think this is when the pandemic started and stuff. And it just became this small sort of community online of just people that were just chilling out in plague doctor outfits. And it's like, well, I mean, it's a cool outfit, but those plague doctors didn't do anything. So, anywho. Let's see.
So, new showrunner, contact us. We have plenty of ideas for new shows.
Yes.
We would love to work with what's his name from Good Omens, Michael Sheen.
Oh,
Michael Sheen must be the new Doctor.
Yes. So if anyone knows how to get in contact with Russell T Davies, since he's taking over Doctor Who again, then we have plenty of ideas. Some of them are stupid, I will grant, mostly mine, but still we have a lot of very interesting ideas. So I know I know there would be a lot of people, though, that would say, well, even your stupidest ideas would be better than what we have now. And it's like, okay, guys, so, I mean, yeah, let's put a vampire in space, although I guess Doctor Who already did that. So, I was actually rewatching our audio drama reviews, and when we did Damaged Goods, and it's like, so the kid's a vampire, I think, and there's something about the Great Vampire War with the Time Lords, and we were just so lost on that. So, it also reminded me that Damaged Goods was originally a book, and I always thought it would be hilarious if you read that book and see if you could understand it at all better. So, in terms of some of the other stuff I got, I mean, there's the Trial by Combat, which we kind of talked about. It was a good fight, definitely. Probably one of the better fights we've had in a while. I'm only 25% sure, and that's probably generous again, that is Benton as Grun. I don't think it really is at this point.
Well, you could do the thing here, and we could... It may be like a brother or something.
Yeah. Well, of course, the problem is... Do you know the actor's name who plays...
No, but I'm sure we could look it up.
Well...
Gordon Sinclair.
Well, actually, here. We have the cast list right here. Well, he's only known for two things, one of them being Doctor Who. I feel like it would have said, though. Also, that's a different name than what's actually in the credits.
Yeah.
Well, I'll look it up real quick.
Now, while you're doing that, one other thing I was going to say is when they first showed Agador, it was very, Alfred Hitchcock, Steven Spielberg-y, where you were only seeing little bits and pieces of him. And I think, overall, again, this is just me as a director, I would have constantly kept him in the shadows, shooting from behind, so that when he would lift his head up, you could see that horn, sort of thing, so that he never actually came full force right into the camera, because again, even for the early 70s, he doesn't look scary enough. Once you actually see him and realize he's really not all that tall, not all that big, then it kind of, to me, it kind of loses some of the scariness of him. But if you always kept him in the shadows and like shot over his shoulder, or shot from the ground up looking at him, and people, instead of looking at him like this, were looking up at him, it would create that sense of menace without ever actually showing him, like they did with what was it, Azal. Because once they showed him in full, satyr form, it's like, I don't think so.
Yeah, well, I think it could have worked like if they did all those better shots until the point where the Doctor brings him into the throne room, because then that sort of dispels everything. Where it's like, okay, so you're just this beast basically. Yeah. So, also, it's not Benton. So, Benton, who by the way his first name is John, we've just never known that. Honestly, for a while I thought it was just Sergeant. But no, he's played by John Levine. So, alrighty. Looked a lot like him, honestly. And I kind of thought, like, well, the fact that only our 2 main characters are in these 4 episodes, I wouldn't have put it past them to sort of recycle some actors, basically.
Yeah, especially since, if you've got a helmet on, or, somebody playing Agador could have been Lethbridge Stewart for all that.
That would have been hilarious. So, but yeah, but it definitely looks a lot like him. So, of course, he fought a lot better than Benton ever did. So, so let's see here. Honestly, I think that's pretty much all I got. Although it is interesting that just one shot from Agador and people go down, like between what was it, Tobish at the beginning, and then Hepesh at the end. Which obviously the Doctor was not intending for Hepesh to die there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just one hit and he went down. But it's a good thing that didn't accidentally sway Peladon over to the other side or something. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
Well, this was a very long, involved conversation for a rewatch. Actually, I don't think we've ever really done that. So,
but I suspect when you edit this down, we didn't actually talk a whole lot during it, so it'll only end up being this part here at the end.
Yeah, definitely. So, but yeah, that is our rewatch of The Curse of Peladon. But another reminder, though, where'd I put it? Here it is. Another reminder that we will have a modern reaction up today to Demons of the Punjab from Doctor Who Series 11. So stay tuned for that one. It should be really, really interesting, actually. So, but that is basically it. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys later. Normally I say next time. I said later. That's okay. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to click around to any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another video, probably the modern reaction we just talked about. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.